This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
Hey, Indie Filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and today I want to tell you about the new boom arm I got, the new dialogue microphone I picked up, and why in my whole career I've avoided ever buying a C-stand.
You've avoided buying a C-stand? That's news to me.
You don't own a C-stand, right?
I don't. Although, I'm dumb because I don't ever really go on professional shoots. I'm trying to picture how a C-stand is different than a regular, lighting tripod that I have. So you have to tell me.
Well, they're just heavy duty. C-stands, if you've never seen one before, it has 3 legs, but they don't fold in. They kind of spin around, so they all kind of fold onto one side. And they're just generally really heavy. So I think the only time I've ever used C-stands is when I've rented, I think when we shot Sriracha. They probably gave us
that Kino Flow.
Yeah, they gave us a Kino Flow, like a big fluorescent soft box, has 4 lights in it, and I think that probably came with a C-stand, right?
Yeah, maybe it did. That was a surprisingly long time ago. It's hard to remember, but I remember the light. It surely came with some kind of stand.
Yeah, I feel like the only time I've used C-stands is when I'm in Los Angeles renting a Kino Flow for a shoot. Anytime I'm renting a large light, you could imagine if you had what are those giant, what are they called, HMIs or something?
Yeah, the ones that can simulate sunlight.
Yeah, those huge lights. You would put that on a C-stand.
Not on the $25 aluminum folding leg thing I've got here.
Right. Yeah. I think
because
all we've ever owned is
me.
mic stands and lightweight light stands.
Well, and lighting has transitioned to LED like everything else has, which has dramatically reduced weight and things like that. But old school bright lights were very big and very heavy.
Well, and I think another place where you obviously would need C-stands is if you are putting up big lighting modifiers. I don't even know all the names of these things, flags and scrims and all that stuff.
And all that good stuff, yeah.
Anything that's heavy or you're leveraging it out on an arm far enough that you're going to need a pretty heavy-duty stand for it. That makes sense.
It does. So does this mean you have now bought a C-stand? What are we talking about here?
I've thought about it because I really hate mic stands because as our... we used to be interested in Alton Brown's show.
Good Eats?
Good Eats.
Oh, it's a Unitasker. Is that what you're going to tell me?
Yeah, it's a Unitasker. It only does one thing.
There's only one Unitasker allowed in the kitchen. Do you remember what it is?
I don't remember.
Fire extinguisher. That's what Alton Brown always said. It's the only Unitasker that's permitted is the fire extinguisher. Everything else needs more than one purpose. So you feel like these mic stands are not multitaskers? I'm not sure that's quite true.
Well, all they do is hold up a mic. You can't put a light on a mic stand. You can't put a camera on a mic stand. So I suppose I just hate the idea of having this thing that's only for a mic. And generally, I've never been happy with any mic stand I've had. They can't get very tall anyway. They're made
cheap.
Yeah, they're made to put a microphone right in front of your face if you're playing a guitar. They're not really made to boom over you, even though they usually have a 6-foot boom, but they're usually pretty short. So I found this Westcott boom arm, and it's made for lighting, and it seems like it could probably support my Aperture 120D lights if I needed to put a light in a weird position. But my feeling was I have all these light stands. Some of them are really low weight, like my Westcott LED panels have these really lightweight light stands. I think you have pretty thin light stands, don't you?
Yeah. Thankfully, my lights are small, so it works, but they're super janky, to be honest.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't throw this boom arm on that. But the light stands that I have for my Aperture 120D set are relatively, they're not as heavy duty as a C-stand, but they're decent weight. So I feel pretty good about putting this boom arm on top. And I think right now I pretty much have it to its maximum length. It's about 6 feet or something. I don't know, what does it say on the B&H site?
57-inch maximum extension.
Yeah. And it looks like it has a pretty heavy duty, you see it's locking mechanism in the middle.
Yeah, it looks pretty serious.
Yeah. And then it also comes with a weight bag.
That's what I was going to say. That's interesting, right? So you can counterweight it a little bit, kind of avoid some of the lever effects that might knock your stand over.
Yeah, I think I put maybe like 6 or 8 pounds in the bag. I have some like ankle, or they're like ankle wrist weights that I for years I've been using them on like a jib arm or something, and today I'm using them in this bag.
So this is what? So you're putting your baby bottle on this bad boy?
I thought about doing that today, but actually today I'm putting my newest microphone. I picked up. This is another thing that I've this boom arm and this microphone are both things I probably should have bought years ago and have kind of avoided. I've just been getting by through other means. Sometimes I'll use the Pedco Ultra clamp to mount a microphone above me or something.
Ding. I feel like you haven't mentioned the Pedco Ultra clamp in a while. I'm glad to see that come back.
We've got to get it.
Yeah.
Well, and the boom arm was relatively inexpensive. I'm glad I finally picked one of these up. And I saw a few different ones, like Impact makes one. They make a lot of different products. But this one I bought was from Westcott, and it's relatively inexpensive. It was $70. And so far it's working out pretty well. But the much more expensive purchase I made was I bought a $600, like, I don't even know what these things are called, like an indoor microphone, like a boom mic.
Nice. Like a shotgun?
Well, it's different from a shotgun. I mean, for years I've been getting by with a shotgun mic, which is why I never bothered buying a mic like this. But anytime I've done a mic test where I say, hey, check out this $200 shotgun mic that I really like. Like, I really like the Asden 250CX. I always recommend that shotgun mic. Great for outdoor shooting. I use it indoors all the time too. But as like professional sound people will point out, a shotgun mic is really designed for outdoor use, and it probably picks up a little bit too much like room reverb. So they recommend these like Hypercardioid condenser mics, which is what I have here today.
Well, let me ask something. Let me just stop you there. Now, I could be wrong, but in my mind, shotgun is more a function of the shape of the microphone and not its pickup pattern. Am I wrong?
Yes, but aren't they kind of? I mean, isn't the shape of the shotgun mic also affects its pickup pattern?
Sure, but I'm looking at this microphone and it sure looks like a shotgun mic. It's shaped like a long tube.
I think it's not as long, and so I think it's more of a hypercardioid pickup pattern than the shotgun, which has a deeper pickup pattern.
Interesting.
Although I'm relatively
Sorry.
ignorant about. Pickup patterns have always kind of eluded me. I guess I'm not smart enough to fully understand them. I mean, I just need to hear a mic, just listen to it and see if it is capturing the kind of audio I need.
All right, take a note. We're going to do a future episode about pickup patterns.
Yeah, we should. So actually, right now, why don't I will stop. This is the last sentence you're hearing on my blue baby bottle in front of me, and now I'm switching to the Audio-Technica. This is the AT4053B.
Oh, you have them both set up. I love it.
Without even monitoring for the difference, I would guess that, okay, let me switch back to the blue baby bottle right now. It's, it's 6 inches from my mouth. And now let's switch back to the Audio-Technica. It is 2 feet from my mouth. So I'm sure they sound different. But this is like where I would place, the whole point of this is I don't want it in the shot. It's just out of frame. Hey, I just want to pause the episode real quick to point out something I noticed in the edit. I don't think I'm giving the Audio-Technica mic a fair shake here because I've put it in a really unfortunate position. It's right above my glass iMac screen and it's backed up against the wall. So I think you're hearing the reverb effect of both those surfaces. So just to prove a point and make it clear that this mic is not as bad as it sounds. It's actually a really good mic. I just have it in a really bad position. Let me pull it away from the computer. We'll just go to the middle of my carpeted room here. And I think you'll find right here, when my voice is not bouncing off the wall, it's not bouncing off the screen, this mic performs a lot better. And so I just wanted to point out that for the rest of the episode, you'll be hearing those effects, but it's not the mic, it's the placement. And just a good reminder that even a really good, nice, expensive mic won't sound great if you put it in a bad spot, which is unfortunately what I did. Also, just a reminder that I still make so many mistakes, even though this has been my career for so many years. But my tests with it, I mean, I did an interview, I did a freelance interview with it last week. That's kind of why I bought it, was especially with COVID, knowing I'm not going to want to put a lav mic on this person. So let's definitely bring a microphone like this. And instead of using the shotgun mic that I've been getting away with for years, let me try one of these. And it sounded really good.
Sweet. That's awesome.
I also used, my first test with the Audio-Technica was that I used it in that Peter Mars video that I put out last week.
That was basically the cutest video ever made.
What do you see in the shot right now?
Stars.
You see stars?
Some planets.
You see planets?
And some planets, teen stars.
Little teeny stars?
If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Yeah, this was before the Mars landing. My 2-year-old son Peter, was very excited about the Mars landing coming up, and so I made him a video. I mean, really, it's just NASA's animation. I just kind of recut it to some music he likes, and specifically the Queen song "Don't Stop Me Now." He loves that song.
Of course, your 2-year-old loves classic rock. I wouldn't. I expect
that's really
nothing
all we
less
listen to.
from your family. Yeah.
I mean, his most requested song is "Doctor My Eyes" by Jackson Browne.
Yeah, I don't think I know that song. It's before my time. But
it has great piano. Okay. Boom, 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 boom.
Oh, that reminds me. Fun fact: I just ordered a piano. Anyway, we can talk about that another time. But
I'll show you a picture in the episode right now. I set up my old DIY teleprompter from like 9 years ago on Indie Mogul, and I put the Audio-Technica Hypercardioid mic. I can barely say that word. I just put it under the teleprompter, and it was a good test because I assumed that Peter would stand a foot away from the monitor, the teleprompter and the mic, and that's where I would pick him up. But 2-year-olds are unpredictable, and I think he ended up spending most of the video like 5 or 6 feet away, and it still sounded pretty good. And I thought, like, well, that's kind of the use case for this mic. Like, you're going to get it as close as you can for the shot, but some of the shots might be a little wider, and I thought it still performed pretty well.
You know, I didn't think about it at the time, but yeah, the sound is great the whole time. You can very clearly, you know, because he's a 2-year-old and, you know, he says words a little differently than we might, but you can totally pick up every utterance that he's saying. It's probably why it's so cute.
It play right now.
What is that?
Two planets.
You see planets? Do you know what planet that is? That red planet?
Mars. My room gets hot.
It gets hot?
It gets hot.
It gets hot?
Mm-hmm.
You don't like when it gets hot?
Get my rover hot. Go what?
I mean, it's definitely overkill to be using a $600 mic on my 2-year-old, but...
Hey, you got the tools, you might as well use them, right?
Right, yeah. So yeah, I guess you're still hearing me on the Audio-Technica right now, and, you know, I think I'm very happy with this microphone, how it sounds, but just, you know, a reminder that I've been getting away with in my career for like the last 10, 15 years with just shotgun mics. This is the first time I've ever owned a mic like this. And so you don't need it.
Exactly right.
Well, as long as we're on the subject of Mars, we're recording this the day after the Mars rover landing, the Perseverance rover.
Spoiler alert, they nailed it. They nailed the landing.
Spoiler alert, we're recording this the day after, and you're listening to this almost a full week.
So if you didn't know,
what some people may not actually know is that because the NASA landing got so much attention, is that China put an orbiter around Mars just a few days ago before NASA's lander arrived. And China has a rover inside their orbiter. It's going to land like several months from now.
Got it.
But it's orbiting right now. And also the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, got an orbiter around Mars like a week ago. Did you know that?
I didn't. Well, it's funny, you know, it was like a week ago you released this video with Peter.
With Peter in it.
Watching, yeah. And like, it still had not dawned on me that this was about to happen. Like, I think I just wasn't paying enough attention, and it was so similar to the one from however many years ago that I just didn't give it a lot of thought. But it was like 3 days ago that I realized, oh, this is about to happen. I better be ready to watch this. It's so cool.
Yeah,
I missed it.
I don't think I paid attention when last summer NASA launched this thing towards Mars. It had to travel 300 million miles, and it took, I don't know, what was it, 7 months or something to get there. It was only when recently Peter's been getting into space. He watched the SpaceX launch where they put astronauts up to the International Space Station, and he thought that was really cool. So we started learning more about the solar system, and the first time he ever saw a picture of the Mars rover, he just instantly wanted to know a lot more. His first question was, when can the Mars rover come home?
It's there forever. It's forever. It's found its forever home.
Yeah, he was sad about that for a while when he first learned about the rover. Like, he really wanted it to come home. Now he understands that it will stay there forever, and he thinks it's pretty cool that it takes pictures of rocks and sends them home.
Well, if he likes stories about people going to Mars and trying to get home, you should give him a copy of The Martian by Andy Weir.
Yeah.
It's a fun book. The language is a little foul for a 2-year-old,
right,
but
yeah.
Other than that, he might enjoy that book, so check it out.
Yeah.
It's actually a great book. Have you read it?
I have, yeah.
There you go. Book club. Hey, Indie Filmmakers.
Oh, this
Everyone
is a filmmaking
read The
podcast.
Martian.
People should watch the movie.
Oh, you can watch the movie starring Matt Damon. Yeah, I guess that's an easier tie-in to this than the book. The book's better, though, just because it's a book, so there's like way more of the good stuff in it. They had to trim it down quite a bit for the film.
Well, let's see. Are there any filmmaking things we should talk about with the landing yesterday? I mean, the weird thing about an event like that is it's a live stream where all they can really show is mission control and some animations / they were kind of showing like there's like they have like a website where you could kind of go through the stages. They're pretty much just showing like screenshots from the website.
Well, yeah, they're just basically getting telemetry back, right? That just says like, where's the lander right now? How fast is it going? Where is it oriented? Is it not exploded? And so the whole point was just to wait for a mission control to go, which was
right, yeah.
Actually, really, I mean, it's a very cool story to watch how excited they are, because if it doesn't go well, the depression would be huge, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, truthfully, Peter was napping during the landing. He's napping right now. We record this in the afternoon when our young children are asleep. and
I actually have a baby monitor with the napping baby in front of me. So if he wakes up, we had to hit pause.
Right.
Today.
And this is his normal time to sleep, and we don't really want to deviate from the routine. So he had his nap while NASA landed, and that was good because I kind of thought, I don't want him to watch if they crash this thing. not that he would see the crash, but he'd hear them be upset about it or something, and then I have to explain that.
But I'm guessing, I'm going to go on a limb and say that you played back the replay for him and pretended it was live.
We did, yeah. And it was also useful
so
to have watched it once and realized that like only about 6 minutes of it is interesting to watch. Pretty much from the moment they find out the parachute pops out.
The 7 minutes of terror. I think all of that is good stuff.
Yeah. I do have a filmmaking question about space that has actually been kind of inspired by like reading children's space books. And I feel like I should do a longer video about this, but maybe I'm not the person to do it. Maybe someone else with some special effects skills should do something about this. Because you know how there's kind of, well, anyone who's seen a picture or drawing of the solar system knows that they always draw the planets way closer together. I mean, very close together, whereas in reality they're like just tiny dots compared to each other. They're so distant, right? But I'm thinking about that photographic technique where, like, if you stand like 2 miles away from a building and you have like an 800 millimeter lens, you know how you can make something look very close to the moon? You can make the moon look giant.
Moon look huge, yeah.
Yeah. So I just feel like theoretically there is some distance you could be from Mars and Earth, and with the the right focal length, it might be a theoretical focal length, you could make them look the same size or roughly the same size, right? And like next to each other. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of a filmmaking trick that as long as you have a long lens and you're far enough away, you can make any two things look close to each other. I do this in LA all the time. If you're going to take a picture of someone with the Hollywood sign, you can't get anywhere near the Hollywood sign. But if you back up a parking lot distance from someone and you zoom in as much as you can actually make it look like it's like right over their shoulder. So yeah, I just figured for any two objects in space, you must be able to make them look close with the right distance. And
I'm sure there's an equation to do it, so I'm surprised you haven't busted out your black marker and done a little math yet.
Right. Like, I kind of want to give the benefit of the doubt to these pictures that I see in books, like this ridiculous picture where all 8 planets in our solar system are there together. I guess theoretically, if they all lined up one day and you were far enough away, you could take a picture that looked kind of like this, with all the planets looking pretty close.
It might be hard with more than 2 because the numbers aren't
will
going
they
to
ever line up? Yeah.
But yeah.
But I guess I just want to give like the benefit
know.
of the doubt to the artist that like this image does exist in some theoretical sense. It just doesn't. It's not a very like meaningful image, I guess. I don't know.
Well, if you know how to figure out like how far away you need to be from somebody to zoom in and make the moon huge behind them, we could probably take that same math and apply it. Just replace it with miles instead of feet or something.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and someone who's
It would be
smarter
huge.
than me, you may not even need to do any math here. You might just, I don't know
might
what
be
the
a ratio.
capabilities of 3D software is, but like if you can, if you just made little models in your 3D software and put them the appropriate distance away from each other and then back up your virtual camera as far as you can. I don't know if it works. You may have to like divide everything by 1 million to make some scale version of this, but presumably you could create this in some 3D software. So actually, I'd love for someone to give me some feedback on that. If you were, what software could you do this in?
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Before we take a break, I want to give an update on our last episode. We did our mic test with those USB mics.
Yeah.
And I think I had a USB mic epiphany that made me realize I need to correct an error I made in the last episode.
Okay.
Last episode, I was talking about how I was having trouble with the Elgato Wave microphone. When I plugged in my headphones, I couldn't get any audio out of it.
You couldn't monitor your own voice, right?
Yeah. And in fact, we got a comment from, let's see, this comment is from Prato Fundo por Vitor Hugo on YouTube. He bought the Elgato Wave 3 mic, which is a different model than the one I was testing. But he says that you have to use some software called Wavelink to control this audio interface, and that may be why I didn't hear any audio in the headphones.
Didn't I mention something like that during the episode?
You did say
got
that,
a lot
yeah.
of software. Yeah.
But the reason I wanted to bring it up is because I realized I fundamentally misunderstand why these headphone ports exist on these mics. That maybe it's a coincidence that I was able to monitor some of these microphones, that they were even giving any of my audio back to me. Because I now understand that one of the primary reasons you would want this is when you plug it into your computer, you're using it as an audio interface to get your microphone audio into the computer. And then you're also using it as an audio interface to bring all the audio back from the computer, so that if you're in a Zoom call, you can do all your mic and output through the mic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I assumed the headphone jack was there on all these mics to monitor the mics, but they're actually there to monitor the computer.
Right.
And it made a lot more sense to me when I have my Fifine K678 that we talked about in the last episode. This is the mic that was the cheapest, the $60 microphone that I liked. I realized why this was useful when I plugged it into, I have like one of those USB-A to Lightning adapters. You could plug a USB device into your iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I plugged this into my microphone or into my iPhone to test it as a microphone, I realized I couldn't hear anything because
it took over as the audio device in and out.
Right. And that's when I was like, oh, I need to plug my headphones into this mic because it's completely taken over all of the audio on my iPhone. And the only way to listen to anything, even just listening to a YouTube video that's on my phone, as long as this thing's plugged in, I need to listen through the microphone.
As I recall, you said the Blue Yeti had some problems with gain and things like that. Do you think there's Blue Yeti software that would improve that situation for a first run for people who, are just setting it up for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that could be the case.
I'm just wondering if we didn't give them a fair shake because we didn't follow the quick setup guide or something,
Yeah, but also, like, I am, if all of these things work out of the box, plugging into a computer, I have no reason to install the software, and I'm not about to add an extra step if it's unnecessary. So I think it's a valid critique to say, I plugged in a mic, started using it, and it was difficult for this reason. And maybe the next step is I need to install some software, but you should know that you're going to have to install some software.
Makes sense.
Also, especially when I'm testing 4 microphones, you'd hope I would do all my research, but like, I don't have time to like read every single manual. And actually, most mics don't even come with manuals anymore. Yeah. The smart products are the ones that give you like a postcard on top that's like, hey, before you plug this in, you need to do this one important thing. Download our app or download this thing, or, and none of them said anything like that. So.
All right. I dub your criticism valid. So after the break, we've got a question from our audience about encoding, plus the $160 testing mistake that Griffin made trying to renew his FAA drone pilot certification.
Yeah, I'll tell you about that because I don't want you to make the same mistake I did.
Hey, Indie Filmmakers is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your filmmaking business.
One thing you can do with the Squarespace website is built right into its interface is a blogging template. And I use the blogging template to publish the podcast. We actually, every podcast episode is just a blog post with an audio file as its first item. And that's how we publish the podcast. It creates an RSS feed and it goes out to everywhere, iTunes and all the podcasting platforms. So if you need to build a blog or you need to build a podcast, Squarespace is a way to do that right out of the box.
Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Griffin to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you, Squarespace. So, Griffin, we got a question from Terme Bergamo on YouTube.
This was on our M1 speed test episode, our Mac episode.
And he asks, what is encoding and what is media encoder and why? And with a PS, what's the difference between encoding and transcoding? Interesting.
I feel like question. I know all these answers, but I also feel like you can back me up and help me through this.
Okay.
So, like, there's encoding, which is where you turn a video. I'm already screwing this up.
I mean, I think it's a little bit
There's
semantics,
encoding where
right?
you write the data in a certain format. There's decoding where you unwrap that and play it back. And then my understanding is just transcoding is the idea of doing both at once.
At the same time. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So you've got a video stream. You want to put it into a new format. How is that done? You encode it into that new format. You've got a video. You want to read it. You want to unpack it. You want to do something with it. Play it back. How do you do that? You decode it. And then transcoding is saying, I've got a video file in one format and I want to make it a different format. So you have to do both those processes at the same time. So we decode it and then we encode it, which is transcoding.
So in a real world application, the camera that's recording me right now, it's getting all this raw light data from its sensor, and then it's going through an encoding process to write an H.264 file. So making the H.264 video file, which is a standard type of video file, that is the encoding, making that H.264. Yeah.
And then when you're on your computer and you hit play, it has to decode that to play it back.
Right.
And then when you edit everything and export it, I mean, there's going to be some decoding going on, of course, while you export it. So almost everything is probably a transcoded if you peel back the onion far enough.
Yeah.
But transcoding in general, I'd think, hey, I've got this finished video. I've got it in ProRes. Now I need to go put it in H.265 or H.264 for YouTube or something. And so I'm gonna use a tool like, what's Adobe Media Encoder, and that's a tool from Adobe designed to do exactly that. Take a file and transcode it from one format to another.
Well, and I think this is where Tarame's question comes from, is that it sounds so much more confusing than it is, because I think we were probably, in that episode, we were talking about transcoding speeds and encoding speeds, and it sounds like we're talking about three different things when we talk about transcoding or encoding or decoding, but we're really talking about one thing, just the idea of making a video file. And so like Media Encoder, even though it only has that in the title, it does all three of those things.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So tell me about this FAA thing. So you have to go get your test to make sure you're not going to kill somebody with your drone, because you are like a licensed drone pilot, basically, right? You need that since you do it commercially.
It's not a license. I'm always careful to use the right terminology. It's a certification I have from the FAA, the Part 107,
license.
The Part 107 certification for unmanned small. There's all sorts of acronyms. Like sometimes it's like SUAS, like Small Unmanned Aerial System, but it all means like drones. So I had to take a test 2 years ago to get the certification, and I kind of forgot that every 2 years you have to re-up it.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned an important distinction today, that your Part 107 certification never really expires. It just lapses. So in the time that once those 2 years are up, you're just not supposed to fly commercially anymore under those rules. But as soon as you then take your recurrent test, I think it's called the Unmanned General Recurrent Test with the FAA, then you're back at it. So I realized that I'm at the end of my 2 years. I need to take this recurrent test. And so I went through the process of finding, the last time I did this, I had to do it through a physical like flight school. I had to go to a flight school and take a test on their computer, and you have to pay like $150 to do it. And so I signed up for the test, and it gives you all these warnings like, are you sure this is the test you want to take? Because if you buy the wrong test, then you're just out the money, and make sure you really need this test. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And so I do it. It actually cost $160 this time. And then like 5 minutes after I buy this thing, I do one more Google search, and I realize the big news in the FAA world that no one ever told me about, like it's not like the FAA sent me an email about this, is that on March 1st, they're going to stop requiring that you do in-person tests with third-party companies like flight schools. You can now just do it on the internet, and what do you know? It's free now.
When did you schedule yours for? Before or after March 1st?
I scheduled my test for March 6th, and my $160 test.
Are you even going to go? Because you can just do it online? Like, it's a sunk cost at this point, right?
Right. I was thinking I should not go. I also assumed I was out the money because they continually tell you there's no refunds. But
yeah,
I went and canceled the appointment, and it seems like they refunded my money right away. So maybe because I did it quickly. I don't think I could have done it day of. I think they would have kept my money.
Well, also, if your test is scheduled for after the test is no longer required, that seems a little fishy. Like,
right. Yeah.
They shouldn't have even let you schedule that test.
Yeah. So I know there's probably a small portion of our audience that are certified drone operators, and this applies to, but you should know that that right now, I think starting March 1st, you no longer have to pay for this test, and it should be a little bit easier. You don't have to go in person to do it. I also think there's plans to change some of the questions on the test, so that may affect your learning.
Is it? Do you remember? Is it a tough test, or is it all pretty?
I think
basic?
Maybe it was a little bit tougher than I thought. Like, I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to, and I think I'm a good test taker. Like, I can kind of fake my way through a test. So I think I was expecting, having studied pretty well for this test, I think I was expecting to get like 100% or like 95%. And I'm trying to remember, maybe I got like 85 or something. And I think you have to get 70 to pass. So I was definitely like worse than I thought I would be.
Are there just lots of rules about like how close to things you can go and what are Class B, Class C airspace and things like that? Is that the kind of stuff on there?
Yeah, it's kind of like, years ago we took our FCC test for ham radio.
Yeah.
And you remember how it's just like such a weird mix of stuff? Like there's questions about safety and there's questions about resistance and voltage, and then there's questions about like how radios work inside, like schematics, and then there's questions about like actual operating procedures on and frequencies you're allowed to use, which is like the stuff that you think is important, like just that last category, and these other categories are kind of like, well, why do I really need to know? Like,
why do I need to know how to build a radio to get this radio license?
Yeah, it kind of feels the same way with the FAA test, where it's like, you need to learn way more weather information than seems relevant to like flying a drone. Like, you have to like learn what certain clouds are called, and you have to learn all about airspace maps, which does seem very relevant. You have to learn all about regulations, which seems very relevant. And then there's also just like some unexpected questions about like, I feel like there's questions even about like how to use the FAA's website.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just like the scope of information that you have to know is a little bit broader than you might realize, which is why you should definitely take a class. I used remotepilot101.com, and I just logged into the site again today and realized I paid at the time for the training and for the access to the recurrent training. So it was like a one-time $50 cost, I think.
So you're set. You're ready to go.
I'll learn all about the recurrent questions, and I'll ace the test again.
You mean get a mid-level B?
Right.
Because it doesn't sound like you aced it, really. That'd be like a 91% or better.
Yeah.
Don't want to cause too much friction there, but
yeah,
maybe study a little harder this time.
Yeah. So I'm glad I did some basic Googling about the state of
Google before you plunked down a bunch of cash to do something.
Yeah.
You kind of did those backwards.
Right.
That's okay. That is okay.
I think after I dropped,
right, so in the future we're going to talk about pickup patterns.
Yeah.
I cut you off. I'm sorry. We had a lot of questions last week about how we avoid talking over each other, and I'm like, you don't watch the show because we talk over each other constantly. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Well, and I probably hide some of it. Like there are times when we talk over each other and it just becomes useless. Like if we're talking about two different things, and sometimes I'll just do some creative editing where like it goes full screen on me and you only see me say the thing I was
and the other mic gets muted.
Right, yeah. So I avoid some of it.
Well, you can't fix the one that just happened because now we're talking about it so people can see what it sounds like when we talk over each other. You're welcome.
You're welcome for the live demo.
All right, my friend. That's all I got. You got anything else you need to chat about?
No, it was good. It was good talking to you.
Yeah, you too. And we will talk to you all later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I only have one camera. Is that okay?
It is okay that you only have one camera today.
All right.
Just this once.